Welcome, scholars and alumni, to our third Meet the Immigrant Entrepreneurs event, a speaker series in partnership with Immigrants Rising. We are very excited for you to be joining us again today. My name is Nicole Wesley, Senior Program Manager of Career Supports at TheDream.Us. Before we dive into our panel discussion, I wanted to share a few announcements. First of all, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, state your name, your college, major. Also, feel free to include your LinkedIn URL. We had some great conversation in the chat in past sessions where scholars were able to link their LinkedIn URL in the chat and connect with scholars and alumni from across the country. For today's event, please use the Q&A feature to ask any questions that you may have for the panelists. Use a chat for any other communication. Know that all sessions will be recorded and posted on the TheDream.Us YouTube channel. And lastly, please know that all information provided during today's session is for educational purposes only, and information shared is not legal advice. I also want to quickly highlight the wonderful resources that we have on our ITIN webpage, as they can be a powerful tool for those who are not eligible for a Social Security number. An ITIN is an individual taxpayer identification number that is issued by the IRS. ITINs can be used to file and pay taxes, open a bank account, apply for an EIN, and pursue entrepreneurial career opportunities through independent contracting, freelancing, or starting a business. For more information on ITINs, check out our ITIN webpage, where you can access these 3 helpful handouts, as well as our ITIN YouTube playlist. You can also find additional helpful links, including Immigrants Rising's ITIN guide at the bottom of our ITIN webpage. As a reminder, our final 2 Meet the Immigrant Entrepreneurs sessions are next week. All events are 90-minute in length and start at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Please make sure to adjust for your own time zone. Also know that each session has its own unique, separate Zoom link. Our next session will be on Wednesday, November 15th, with a focus on health and medicine. And now we'll begin today's session with a focus on public and social services. I'll turn it over to our partner at Immigrants Rising, Rocio, to take it away.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you so much to all of you who are joining us today on a Friday and who were able to block off some time out of your day to be joining us in this wonderful panel session that we have put together for you. We have an incredible lineup of speakers who are going to be speaking about their experience in entrepreneurship within the world of public and social services. And we're very excited to have this partnership with TheDream.Us and for their trust in allowing us to come into the space to introduce you to a lot of the knowledge and the expertise that is within the undocumented community. My name is Rocio Preciado, and I'm the Director of Mental Health and Career Services at Immigrants Rising, and I've been at Immigrants Rising over the past almost 10 years. I was formerly undocumented. I was born in Guadalajara, Mexico, and I came to the US at the age of 9. And there were 2 things that my parents shared with me. One of them was never share your immigration status with anyone, because that could potentially mean deportation. And second, since you can't work, your only responsibility is to do well in school. And that did become my only responsibility, to do well in school, until I was left wondering, what would college access look like for me? And I did end up attending UC Santa Cruz. And when I graduated from UC Santa Cruz, I was still undocumented. I did not have work authorization. And I remembered one thing family members said to me: what is the point of going to college if you won't be able to work? And graduating college, I remember there was this resource guide that Immigrants Rising had, and that was their Life After College guide. And through that guide, I learned about independent contracting. I learned about ways to start a business. And that was the way that I was able to generate some sort of income for myself to be able to have some sort of livelihood. And I'm really excited that today we have panelists that have gone into the journey of entrepreneurship, not just to be able to survive, but to be able to thrive. In a world in which oftentimes there are many limitations, but they've been able to turn some of those limitations around to be able to create something for themselves. And so very excited to be here and to also share that at Immigrants Rising, that is one of the areas of work that we want to make sure that you have access to. And over the last 17 years, it's some of the work that we've been doing, continuing to increase the knowledge and information about what entrepreneurship can be and what entrepreneurship can look like for people independent of their immigration status. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our amazing panelists that we have with us today, who you also have access to their bios through the document that TheDream.Us has shared with all of you. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started with Perna. Perna Law is the founder and owner of Law Legal and is a leading scholar and expert on immigration law and policy. Perna was born in the Fiji Islands, came to the United States with their parents when they were 14, and grew up in San Francisco Bay Area, California. They're formerly an undocumented immigrant, and Lal was an integral in the establishment of advocacy networks led by undocumented youth and mobilized thousands of undocumented immigrants into pursuing the Federal Dream Act in 2010. Ending the deportations of undocumented youth and winning the now popular Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals DACA program for the Obama administration. Lal also helped with the creation of many local immigration youth groups involving direct support, mentorship, and advocacy to individuals caught in the immigration dragnet. Perna Law now owns and manages their own law firm, Law Legal, where they continue to serve immigrants and shape immigration advocacy. They live in Berkeley, California, and they are the author of Unsung America, Immigrant Tribalizers, and Our Fight for Freedom. Welcome, Perna. We also have Jorge Alvarez, founder of Alpha Rho LLC. Jorge is a resilient and creative Mexican immigrant. His different journey in this country began at the age of 17. The activism journey began in college by working with other undocumented students at the local and state level. He is a founding member of the California Dream Network in California, and his educational journey began right after arriving in Los Angeles by enrolling in adult school to complete the GED, English as a Second Language, an associate degree in accounting, a bachelor's degree in applied economics with a concentration in finance, and recently a master's in business administration. As an entrepreneur, Jorge began selling cookware door by door, followed by contracting with LA Airport as a delivery driver for lost luggage, and then moving into selling clothes for farm workers in different cities throughout California. Jorge was a member of the first co-op for and by undocumented entrepreneurs. He participated in the first cohort of Undocumented Entrepreneurs Fellowship by Immigrants Rising. Most recently, he founded Alpha Rho LLC, which owns 3 businesses: Baggage Solutions, Alpha Rho Rentals, Alpha Rho Logistics, and Radiate Consulting. Jorge has 12 years of experience working in the nonprofit world, and he currently is the head of the accounting finance department at Chirla. His hobbies include following news about economy and geopolitics, reading about personal finance, tax, code laws, being a Toastmaster, salsa dancer, volunteering at Vita programs, and watching any episode related to the Star Wars saga. Welcome, Jorge. And we also have Alessandro Negrete, owner of Alessandro Advisors LLC. Alessandro Negrete, or Ale to the community, is a queer undocumented immigrant from Manzanillo, Colima, Mexico. Over the last 20 years, Alessandro has consulted on a number of issues to advance racial justice, address climate change, and housing. His community approach has made him a sought-after voice in conversations around diversity, equity, inclusion, and race. He was also the first openly undocumented person to run for neighborhood council in Boyle Heights. Through his work on the board, he was able to reopen the Transit Environment Committee and pass 2 ordinances to make his home community a safe space for both LGBTQ+ and undocumented people alike. He is acknowledged as a contributor of the Los Angeles River Master Plan and Lower LA River Master Plan. He also represented Supervisor Solis on the LA County Sustainability Plan and is currently consulting a nonprofit in Los Angeles to build a fund to advance economic prosperity to underserved communities in Los Angeles County. His entrepreneurship journey began in 2016 when he decided to start an LLC, and then he has been able to grow his operations and now runs Alessandro Advisors as a principal consultant. He often partners and supports other undocumented people by providing guidance, advice, and resources to help on their entrepreneurship journey. Ale lives in Los Angeles with his fur baby Lorca, the Chiweenie, and is working on a forthcoming book of essays. What an amazing panel we have today. And so for those of you who want to go back and continue to learn about the panelists, you have access to their bios. And we're also going to be sharing more information about their websites as well so that you can continue to engage with them. And so thank you all so much for joining us. And there's just such a broad wealth of information and expertise and knowledge. And as I was sharing earlier, when I graduated from UC Santa Cruz, one of the alternatives that I had to come across was entrepreneurship. Starting my own business, working at the flea market, selling jeans and shapewear, and really wondering, how am I going to be able to utilize my degree as an entrepreneur without immigration status? I never thought myself as an entrepreneur when I graduated college. And so my question to you all is, to our panelists is, what is your story and your business's story? And what was your first connection and exposure to entrepreneurship? And so we can have Perna go first.
Well, thank you for that warm welcome. I think my first exposure to business, I mean, being undocumented meant we had to hustle for everything, really. And my first exposure to business, I think, was my mother actually had a cleaning business and still does. And that's how she sort of helped put me through, undergrad, grad school, law school as well. And I also had to work during law school, whether it was working odd jobs here and there, contracting. And so very early on, I was sort of doing things for cash because that's all I could do at the time. So I started blogging for cash or creating things, websites for cash. And so I taught myself many different skills doing that kind of work. So I taught myself how to use social media, communications, design websites, code, and very far from what I actually went to school with for. And so picked up different skills along the way, and that sort of allowed me to, when I finally was able to become a lawyer, to do things like already have a social media presence, already have marketing and advertising and know how to do those things, already have know how to create a website and update it. All of these are things that hopefully I have sort of been able to pay other people to do now at this point in my life. But it helped me get started with creating a law firm as well, and so that was useful. And I had these skills, had to develop these skills because I was undocumented, and while I no longer sort of need them, that was sort of forced me to know how to do many different things.
Thank you for sharing, Perna. And I really love how you were highlighting how even entrepreneurship within your family in itself became the source of being able to fund your own education, and just kind of like how things kind of just turned around, things took a turn. And we'll hear from Jorge.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. So if you can share what is your and your business's story, and what was your first exposure to entrepreneurship? We can't, you're on mute, Jorge.
Okay.
There you
Can you
go.
hear me now?
Yes.
Definitely the first exposure to entrepreneurship happened when I first arrived to this country. I remember vividly, well, my father, he used to work selling clothing at the swap meets in the state of California. So the very first day that I arrived, I remember arriving on a Sunday early morning, and he's like, take a shower, get dressed up, we're going to the swap meet. So right in, I dive in. That was the first thing that I made. I was like, oh, this is a swap meet. Okay, this is cool. But after that, really looking for opportunities that I knew I couldn't really work because of the work authorization. So I remember one of the advocates that told me clearly, Jorge, you gotta be creative. And that's such a powerful word that I have been using throughout my life, because I said, if I couldn't really work, how can I, as an employee, how can I work? How can I generate income? So really my journey, what you mentioned were just a little bit of those, which is cooking, selling cookware door by door, selling clothing on the swap meets, all of that, or being a contractor for deliveries at LAX at the time when it was in 2006, 2008, when it was a really dangerous per se. But it's one of the things that I really I think it was key here is number one, being measure the risk and go for it. Number two, being consistent, and also just keep going, don't give up. And that's really how I started. And eventually, one thing led to another. I was involved in community college. I wanted to actually before community college, I wanted to go to school. So really knocking different doors. That's how I actually ended up going to college and being part of other organizations with other. Finding out that I was not the only one. That there were many other students that were undocumented, and that's how I got involved into the activism, which eventually led me into the accounting, work in accounting for nonprofits. So one thing has really led to another thing happening, and that's why I take it. I have seen the opportunity on something and just like take on. So that's I think that's the secret, and also very important. Be aware of your finances. As an entrepreneur, you must have a control of your finances at all times. Yes.
Well, we're hearing the advice from the accountant and the person with a master's in business. Thank you, Jorge, for sharing that. And there's, two things that you and Perna mentioned and highlighted, which was really having to be engaging in certain developing certain skills and being in certain settings and doing certain things that were not necessarily aligned with what you were doing, but that were getting you to where you eventually are today. And those little steps that became stepping stones. Alessandro.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Alessandro, pronouns he, him, él. I am in Tongva Gabrielino territory, now known as Los Angeles, LA. And I just want to say it's a pleasure to be on a panel with Perna and Jorge. Both of them have been doing a lot of the work to advance immigrant rights. So it's a pleasure and a privilege to be surrounded by such great folks. My entrepreneurship journey and my story, much like you heard from a lot of folks, our parents were really the original folks that brought us here, and they were busting their butts to make sure that we had as easy a living as possible, but also showing us what it's going to take to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, right? And so my story comes from my mom. My mom was also, after her and my dad split up, she was like, well, I know how to make food. I'm going to sell food. So my mom was a street vendor. That's how she really provided for us until she was, and she was putting herself through school. We didn't even know that as kids. She was putting herself through an accountant's course, not through a college, but it was just like to learn how to manage books. And it was because my mom is a very chatty Cathy. She was talking to everybody in the neighborhood, finding out where the latest deals were, and was always just very communicative, and also herself was a resource to the community because she was able to direct folks to where things were. And so seeing my mom's hustle really like invigorated me, because I also grew up in don't ask, undocumented and unafraid. So I was not allowed to talk about it. And, my light skin privilege allowed me to navigate certain spaces with ease. And so growing up, when I was able to get work as a secretary or white collar work immediately out of high school, the very few people that I did share my status with were able to support me in finding ways to maneuver and getting paid under the table. But again, doing these white collar jobs, but it was also, in the work that I do was really that upbringing and seeing how our communities were treated in the backgrounds, in the shadows, mistreated, and taken advantage of, that really pushed me to continue to do the work that I do now. And so I started looking for opportunities for consulting, and in 2016, I just got tired of it. I was consulting around one nonprofit at a time, but I was just like, you know what? I can do this for a lot of nonprofits and just continue to build my brand and the work that I do. And I decided to launch my LLC. I used to just do consulting one nonprofit at a time, but one of the things that a lot of these nonprofits lack is the lived experience. A lot of people that come into these spaces come from academia, and though there's nothing wrong with that, we often lose sight of our power. There is power in our story. There is power in our lived experience, and there is value in that. And so even though I went to school and I have that degree, my strongest degree is the life that I've lived as an undocumented person living in America. An undocumented person living in America through oppression, through capitalism, neoliberalism, and understanding that. And that in itself has power. And so through that, I started, shopping myself around. And it wasn't easy, I will say that. In 2016, that first year, I was going through my savings, paying to join a lot of young professional networks and accessing a lot of these spaces. And working my I-10. I definitely appreciate Jorge's comment around getting your finances in order, because early on, I did not have anyone telling me that. And then in 2012, the IRS came after me, and I'm like, what do you mean I owe all this money? And so now, thankfully, all my finances are in order. But, from 2016 to now, it's been a huge change. I've been able to use my lived experience and the experience that I've gained even now with the ever-changing landscape here in LA County, in around race, around environment, these issues that we see on the news. We don't have to think about what's going on in other places. It's going on here in our homes. And though I do stand in solidarity with the folks in Palestine, I also understand that here we are also oppressed, and a lot of the work that I do is around holding our elected officials accountable. And so now I've been able to hire 2 folks, and we consult 3 nonprofits around their work, both internally, because you can't be in a nonprofit advancing racial justice when internally you're also oppressing the people that work for you. And so that's a lot of the work that I do.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, Alessandro. And there's just so many things that you shared there in terms of, one, again, touching into the liberation of one group is also the liberation of others. And being able to identify that there are gaps, that there are blind spots that other people have, and really our own lived experience has opened up our ability to be able to see certain things to help others see the blind spots that they have, whether that is people in policy, whether that is other neighbors, whether that is people within our families. And I just love being able to, I just love how you all were able to really touch on, one, the way in which your lived experience has gifted you certain skills or to be in service of others. One of the questions that I do have is, and some of you were touching on the skills that you've had to develop, and the skills that you're probably continuing to develop. So my question to you is, what are some of the skills that you came in with? Our lived experience oftentimes is able to gift us with certain skills, certain talents. What were some of the skills that maybe your lived experience has gifted you? What are some of the skills that you're still developing? And that you're continuing to develop? And we can have Alessandro go first.
The skills that I came in with was my ability to be chatty and you know, a loudmouth. Always knowing that, you know, it's hard. You know, I come from a growing up, if you would have never guessed it, but I was actually very quiet before in high school because I was always so scared and meek. But early on, right after high school, I learned like, no, I need to take up space, because the moment you don't choose to speak up is the moment someone will make a decision for you and without you. And so I learned that I needed to advocate for myself. And so that was I think that was the biggest thing that I walked in with. But also my desire to learn. I wanted to learn because I'm like, you know what, this may not be useful at some point, but you know, I wanted to develop skills. You know, in consulting, when people ask me like, so how do you decide what do you want to do? I'm like, well, you know, if you're good at 3 things, be good at 3 things, but be great at one. Choose one thing you want to be great at and sell that, you know? But some of the skills that I'm still developing are also just like, I'm learning to temper myself. I a lot of the work that I do has to be values aligned. But you know, the reality is that even in the nonprofit industrial complex and in politics, there is a lot of backdoor deals that I've either been a part of or unassumingly. And so I'm learning to really navigate those waters, because I always want to do right by my community. And I always try and continue to be in community because I want to keep my ears and thoughts to the ground. Like, not, I don't really care what so-and-so politician is doing. Like, my job is to inform him of what he's doing wrong. And it's going to come directly from the folks that are directly impacted from some of those decisions.
Thank you, Alessandro. Thank you for sharing. Jorge.
Yes, sorry for that delay. I was actually writing down. I have actually 10 different points up here that I want to talk to you that are really important, and they actually have been key for the success that I've had so far. So the number one thing that I like to share is learn how to sell. Now, when I'm talking about selling, I'm not talking about selling a product. Well, sell is not only the act of selling a product or a service, but it's also it's the act of selling an idea or selling a concept. So that's number one, and it's key. Very easy. Every time that every time that each of us goes and asks for a job, at the job interview, we're actually selling ourselves. Think about it. So that's the number one thing. Learn how to sell. Number two thing, very important, learn how to negotiate. Negotiate is not the same as selling. Selling is the act of selling that, but negotiating is really the win-win situation. Always strive for the win-win situation in which both parties can get the benefit out of whatever you're negotiating. And there's so many different techniques in which that you can learn, and it's important as an entrepreneur so that you can negotiate your contracts, as an employee so you can negotiate your rates, and in life, even in your relationships, you can negotiate with other people your your negotiables and non-negotiables in relationships like that. Number three, very important, your personal finances. Personal finances, like I said, they have to be on point. You must be a master of your personal finances. I used to wake up in the morning and look at my Facebook, my social media. Now I wake up in the morning and I look at my bank account because I have to be in control of what goes in, goes out. You never know. That's how scams happen because we're not in control of that. We are afraid of looking at that bank account because we don't want to see that impact that it had from going partying last night. You have to face that reality and you have to see what happened. So that's number three, keep personal finances. And personal finances also means doing a budget, creating a budget, knowing how much money it's coming in, how much is going out in expenses, how much is left, and creating a programming for your savings. Savings, creating also on personal finances. I want to expand more. Creating what is your emergency fund. Usually it should be 3 months worth of your expenses so that if anything happens in an emergency, you have that cushion to actually rely and to get you out of the problem. Now, emergency doesn't mean oops, I have to buy a new I want to get a new car. That's not an emergency. That's a want to. Going into personal finances as well. It's developing your want versus I need. Do I really need that? Do I really need to go out and have and party, or do I want to go out? If I want to, if I want to, then it's not a necessity. So it's a necessity versus a want. Going into the personal finances is still knowing what is in your budget, what goes in, what goes out, creating your plan of the 3 month emergency fund, creating your savings, and very important, start thinking about the retirement. It is possible as an undocumented person with your IT, you can actually get a retirement. You can open an IRA. Immigrants Rising in the section of entrepreneurship, I actually did the research and I have a video. So go to Immigrants Rising. You can share. Maybe somebody can put the link in the chat about how to open a retirement fund using IRA, using your eating in an IRA. Tax system. Number four, the tax system. It's very important for people to know how the tax system works. We only know, everybody knows that it's April 15 or January 30. You just take your forms and you go and you pay somebody and you have that person do your taxes and you have no idea what happened. It's imperative for you to know what's going on. What are the different brackets in the state and at the federal level? What are the different brackets and taxes at the state level and also at the local level? It's very, very important for that for you to know. And if you want to have a crash course on that, go to a volunteer for a VITA program. A VITA program is put together by IRS. It's free clinics where people can can file their tax returns at no cost, and you can volunteer there and you can learn so much. So again, this is for you. Number five, network. I can't emphasize that network. Get to know the people, meet people. It's very, very important. Thank you, Alessandro, VITA volunteer program. Thank you very much for that. Network. Talk to people or maybe an accountant. Yes. Yeah, you can do that as well.
Marry an accountant like Abby did.
Network. It's important for you to know, expand the circle of people that you know. The more you know, the more people you know. It's really not about what you know, it's who you know. That's how deals are happening and everything. Number six, your mindset. It's very, very important to change your mindset. If you're going to be into this business world, if you're going to go as an entrepreneur, you have to change your mindset. Think about that. Remember, it's not that somebody was lucky. It's just that the opportunity was there and the preparation was there and they met and that led for you to have the opportunity to work or to close the deal or whatever it was because you were prepared. But you're not prepared if you're not networking. So it's also, again, that networking, it's important. Also, I'm sorry, and the mindset, because having that mindset will open your mind and you will start looking at those opportunities you're looking for. Keep your relationships. Yeah, I can come to this place. I can say, hi, Alessandro, nice to meet you. And that's it. But if I go out this weekend and I happen to run into Alessandro, it's very easy to be like, hey, Alessandro, good to see you again. And that's how we're keeping that relationship. We're keeping the relationship. We're not talking that much, but at least I'm already in his mind. He's already in my mind. So it's about that. It's about that. Somebody says it's also about being aware of who you can be perceived. Yes, that is very true. How you can be perceived. So keeping that relationships. Number 8, control your emotions. Very important. We know that when our emotions are high, we can say or do things that are not logical. So you got to control your emotions. Try to ground yourself before making any decision. It's crazy. It might be crazy. A couple of days ago, I was working until like really late. I'm like, that's it. I'm leaving. I'm dead. But then I'm like, okay, calm down, okay. This is only a one-time thing. what's going on here. So really, really, you learn to control your emotions. Number 9, learn how to ask. I don't remember the name of the book or where it is. It's a story of somebody asking for money. There's a cafe out there, and the guy goes like, "Hey, can you give me a quarter?" Sure. So the guy takes out the wallet, sitting on the at the coffee shop. The wallet filled up with $100 bills, and he's like, here's the quarter. And then the person asking for money, the peddler said like, "Oh, but you have $100 bill there. Why don't you just give me $100 bill?" No. You ask for a quarter, I'll give you a quarter. If you had asked for $100 bill, I would probably have given you the $100 bill. Learn how to ask. And number 10, which also is really important, learn how to be cold on your decisions, especially on your business decisions. I may be having, I can be renting, maybe I'm renting this office. The view is beautiful. I love it. But if it's eating all of my income and it's really not providing anything, I have to make that cold decision. Yes, the view is beautiful. I love being here, but it's eating all of my earnings. I gotta sell it. So be cold with your decisions, especially with your business decisions. So that's what I can share about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. I hope everyone was taking notes. If not, I saw some note takers in the chat. So make sure that you're taking screenshots, that you're saving those because these are key. And such valuable information, Jorge. And I know that you could possibly lead a full seminar on each one of those 10. Perna.
Anytime. Feel free to reach
Anytime. So
out.
if anyone is looking for a financial coach, right there is Jorge really selling himself,
Actually,
selling his
one more thing.
expertise.
Yes.
I'm sorry. One more thing that I forgot to mention, and this is key, and everybody's gonna agree with me. Look and find a mentor. A mentor will cut the time for you to get where you go. And if it took me 20 years, I always say this to everybody. If it took me 20 years, I can make it happen for you in 5 years. Find a mentor.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jorge. We'll pass it on to Perna.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add to that.
What he said.
I'll just be taking up space if I did. So, I can pass. No worries.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. And now I do want to touch on something because there's a lot of skill development. And I remember when I was in college, I was doing everything and anything that I could find to learn and develop some sort of skill because there was this need that I had to be needed in a particular space. That if at any moment there was a need, I would be able to be kind of like this first responder. And so there was this need for me to continue to learn. And it gave me a sense of comfort and safety to learn. Now, when did you each realize, or when did you formalize some of those skills? Because there's a lot of skills that I'm pretty sure you all have. Like, for example, Perna, you talked about coding, developing websites. You're an immigration attorney. Now, how did you all figure out or realize, okay, it is time for me to formalize this skill and make profit out of this? And we can start with Perna.
Yeah, it wasn't until much later in my life that I really started to profit from my hustle. I spent a lot of time running away from profit and business, in fact. And it was right after law school, past the bar. I started my own company, law legal at the time, but started working on other advocacy things. I started working in DC to get extended DACA and DAPA policies, which have sort of gone nowhere, and try to create and expand programs for undocumented folks from all walks of life, and then move to Berkeley, California, to teach at the law school, as well as create the undocumented student program at University of California, Berkeley later. So I wasn't really profiting from anything that I had known and learned while being undocumented, besides, obviously my knowledge of immigration law, which I sort of had quite a bit of lived experiences with, because I was undocumented, placed in removal proceedings, had to fight deportation for 4 or 5 years. And so I sort of learned a lot about the law during the time. But I wasn't really sure I was able to get work, and was in a more privileged position than a lot of our undocumented youth today, in the sense that I was able to eventually get my papers and work for others. But eventually, being an immigration lawyer isn't easy, especially somebody with lived experiences. And the Trump administration happened, and that led to even more working 80 hours a week, burning out essentially. And I had to sort of take time to myself, and I had a major health scare during that time, and he decided this wasn't sustainable for me. And that's when I was like, listen, I know how to do all of these things, from social media, using my network, from building my own website, from financing, and knowing how to create companies and run a business. Why don't I just start doing this full time? So that's when I sort of quit the many jobs I was doing and not being paid for, and started my own practice in 2018, formally. And sort of I did it first to just replace the salary, in fact, and wasn't even thinking about making money necessarily, but just like, let me just make sure that I can replace the salary. But eventually just grew into a thing where I could work less and be paid more, essentially, because I was managing my own hours, I was managing the kind of cases I was taking, and gave me more independence and freedom than I ever thought possible. I stopped living paycheck to paycheck. I can close down my business for a year and not do anything and not be impacted, essentially, is where I am in life. And that makes me also a better person, because I have more time to give to other people, people in my life, people, my friends, yourselves as well. So that's, also as I'm getting older, it's been essential to sort of not run myself into the ground, but essentially, free up my life, and also just my health as well. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, I mean, I've sort of formalized things 5 years ago, essentially, and I cannot go back to working for somebody else, essentially, and it just doesn't seem to any amount of money.
And we'll touch on that a little bit later too, and just in terms of like that level of freedom and agency that entrepreneurship can have. And I know that in our previous panel session, there were some aspects around, how is it that we go about sometimes like glorifying entrepreneurship, and then also there's opportunities where once you are an entrepreneur, there's really no going back. You do not see yourself going back. And so I see a lot of nods, and it's like, yeah, I can definitely resonate. So thank you for sharing, Perna. Alessandro.
Sorry, Rocio, can you repeat the question? I think I remember it, but.
Yes. So there's a lot of skills that you all have developed throughout the years. Now, when did you know, or how did you know it is time for me to formalize these skills and begin to earn income from this?
When Tom Sainz, the president and general counsel of Maldives, forced me to become a fundraiser. I started off, more of my work was around fundraising. I was the statewide director for a nonprofit here in LA, and part of being the director is fundraising. And I hated it, because coming from movement, I wanted to be at the rallies, at the protests, I wanted to do all of that, but I was young, and much like Perna, it wasn't until later on that I'm like, oh wow, people everywhere in the nonprofit industrial complex, everyone needs a grant writer. Everyone needs a grant writer. And so it wasn't until after that experience that in 2013, I decided to do my first training through the Grassroots Institute for Fundraising Training. And I learned a lot about, fundraising and what it takes and what are the elements. And also just learning more about how beyond being some of the poorest people, we are also the ones that give the most. And so really humbling myself through that, but also even after that, it was like perfecting my writing, taking classes, speech classes, also learning how to pitch, looking for opportunities where I can learn how to do an elevator pitch, where there's more people that are doing development work. Currently, right now, I'm actually about to start doing to get my CFRE, the Certified Fundraising Executive certificate. Yeah, that's something that I've been wanting to get for a while, but it was really in 2016 when I launched that I was like, you know what? I write decently, I write grants, I've gotten most of them. I have a really good return rate on approval and getting things funded. I'm gonna invest, and even in little things, look at Grammarly, like, you never know, it helps create a lot of context for yourself. And so that was really when I was just like, you know what, I thought I had it down, but it's also learning how to code switch. Much like Jorge said about selling yourself, it was really learning how to code switch. The way I talk to some of these executives, and unfortunately in the philanthropic institutions, the money is moved predominantly at the time by rich older white men. And so learning how to code switch and just hold my politics and respectability politics, and just learning that I'm doing this also in service of my community, bringing these resources down, it was my main goal. Whether I was comfortable talking to that many white people about, the resiliency of my community, which is amazing, but it's sometimes like, why do I have to tell you that we need these resources? You should literally know this already. But again, those were the things that I came in with, but also like, I really need to professionalize some of these aspects of it, because we all write, we all speak, but really professionalizing a lot of these things that at the time I didn't know that I was a fundraiser. I'm like, oh, we do a lot of fundraising in our communities. When you give that dollar to your church, when you go to a bake sale, when you go to a car wash, our communities are constantly trying to raise money for one thing or another. And so really professionalizing a lot of these things that in our community are so normal.
Thank you. Thank you for highlighting that, because sometimes we dismiss the things that we do on a day-to-day as skills that other people can benefit from. And as you were sharing the example of the fundraising that happens in the community, I can also even think about the example of some of you, of the participants who are listening to us today. You have applied to scholarships. That in itself, how can you translate? And as you're applying to scholarships to fund your college education, how can you transfer those skills to maybe skills that now Alessandro is doing, right? Applying to grants and like bringing in money now to support the work and institutionalizing services and resources for our community. So thank you for really highlighting that example as well. Jorge, how did you know it was time to formalize those skills and begin to generate income?
When I found out that I was poor. No, really, the moment happened. It was just some time ago. I was doing the training. I did a training, personal development training, and I was asked to create my mission and vision of life. My vision of what my vision of the world, perfect world, will be, how I would like the world to be, and then my mission, which is what do I have to do in order to what do I have to do and what I have to contribute on a daily basis to make sure that that perfect world that I'm envisioning can happen. And that's and which translates also into creating a journey, creating what you want for the rest of your life. So I realized that I developed my journey as a finance. What is that I wanted? So in order to that, it was I need to make some money. I need to not some. I need to make more money. And how I'm gonna be classifying those resources, how I'm gonna be using that as leverage to continue with my journey. So it was really that moment, and also part of my vision is that I want to be able to secure financially my family 3 generations ahead of me.
Mm,
So that's one of my missions in in the financial area. That's my vision. My mission is to make it happen, right? So that's when I started to look into all this. And when you focus your ideas, when you realize that that's your ultimate goal, everything around you starts conspiring or like working towards that. But I also have to say that it's really important to continuously read books and reshape your way of thinking.
mm,
I have a list of books that I can go through right now, really, really easy, that are key for me. So yeah, like Gabby Pacheco said, building that generational wealth, that's the key. And some of the books that I can tell you right now, if somebody can take a note, that I think are really, really important, are like The Art of War, Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence Over People, The Magic of Thinking Big, The Monk That Sold His Ferrari, The Alchemist, Who Moved My Cheese, and those are the ones that I can think of right now.
beautiful, beautiful. And there it is, learning. It's a day-to-day thing. It's a never-ending thing.
Exactly.
And it's continuous. And sometimes we believe that once we graduate college, that's when we stop learning, but it's an ongoing and a continuation that happens.
I'll repeat them, Gabby. So it's The Art of War, Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Influence Over and Win How to Win Friends and Influence Over People, The Magic of Thinking Big, The Monk That Sold His Ferrari, The Alchemist, and Who Moved My Cheese.
Thank you, Jorge. Hope we have, so glad we have our note takers in the audience. Now, one thing that was touched on is that there is someone out there benefiting from your skills, benefiting from your knowledge. Now, can you share a little bit more about who are your clients? And what are some of the problems that you're helping your clients solve through your services and through your business? And again, this is also tied to, how does that then connect and relate to what Jorge has shared too, which is your vision and vision for what it is that you want the world to look like. So just to repeat the question, what is the need that your business is currently addressing, and who are your clients? Who is benefiting from the services, and how do you see your business being able to support what your mission and your vision is for the world? Perna.
Yeah, let's see. My vision for the world is open borders. That's probably not going to happen. But my hope and desire is that people should be able to live complete and full lives regardless of who they are, where they're from, what their race, gender, sexuality, sexual orientation, whatever is, doesn't really matter to me. So I welcome people from all walks of life. I'm very, very lucky to have access to so many different communities that come through the doors here. I have, I think, clients from Afghanistan, Haiti, Philippines, everywhere, literally. And that's been an amazing experience. To be able to learn about different countries, different places, and to help people from everywhere in the world. And I do consider myself very, very lucky to be able to do so. But yeah, I mean, we mostly do immigration law during tax season. I help with tax. I don't try to have we had a really long tax season this year till October, which was quite a lot. so because of the winter storms, and I'm hopeful we don't have the same thing next year. But it's in any case, most of my work is immigration litigation as well, and trying to help people access one of the most complicated, convoluted areas of law. So that's what I do, and yeah, I don't think me being a lawyer is really helping drive the cause of reforming our immigration system, because that has been quite a long battle. We haven't had any kind of immigration reform that is worth talking about since the '86 amnesty necessarily. So there's been little things here and there though, and we've been chipping away at little things and winning little battles. So that's been helpful. But yeah, it's my hope and desire is that, you know, my work is able to change people's lives, even if it's, you know, one person at a time.
Beautiful. Thank you, Perna. Alessandro.
So my clients are predominantly either elected officials or nonprofits, CBOs, and so really is around, it's around the issue. You know, here in LA, again, much like Jorge said, your brand is, I'm a loudmouth, and I speak truth to power. You know, I have no problem telling a politician like, you're wrong, when they're wrong, right? But I will also tell him, you did good, when they did good. So it's never just about being contentious. It's always understanding and navigating that relationship to advance yourself as well. And so building myself out wasn't easy in the beginning, because, you know, at the end of the day, I'm still one of the 11 million left without status. So really selling myself was a key point, because people are scared to hire a consultant or sole proprietor. But I really had to, you know, like, this is what sets me apart. I always tell people, there's going to be you can hire a consultant, but what is my comparative advantage is that I come from the lived experience and not from academia, but I have the academic behind me. And so when people refer me, or when people ask me for the services, it's always just like, well, you know, it's about sitting down, like, what are you trying to do? What is the initiative? And how does that directly connected to the work? Because a lot of times, if people really follow the civic process, sometimes, you know, for these nonprofits, or even for our elected officials or their offices, it's like, oh, well, we held 3 community meetings. It's just a series of check boxes. But what I bring is like, no, that is not, you are not doing that work out of intention. You're doing it out of a mechanism, and that doesn't serve my community. And that's part of the added value that I bring, is just like, no, because I live in the city, I live in the county, whatever happens is going to directly impact me. And so I'm bringing down that information to my community, some of the biggest challenges, because it's also like, not everywhere in LA is Latino. And so constantly also advocating for the translation of services, translation of documents, that things that you think are common sense are not common sense in a lot of our offices. And so that's how I continuously advocate for all of these things, where people are like, you know what, if you really want to cause systemic change, call Alessandro. Because it's going to be one of those situations where I'm like, you know, I've come to the realization, I'm not going to be a millionaire, but I can be a thousandaire doing this work. Because I'm not going to do this money. I'm going to not necessarily doing it for the money. Of course, the money is good, but I want to do right by my community as a byproduct of LA and my surroundings. Like, I want to ensure that we're going to continue to be here. You know, gentrification is really, you know, throwing off our social networks. So much like Jorge said, connection is important. I'm trying to keep my connections in my community so that I don't have to really reach out. And for anybody, if you're ever in LA, feel free to reach out to me. I'm definitely, you know, put myself out there. But yeah, so that's how I reach out to build my brand and continue to build out the work that I do and find clients. Now I'm thankfully at a place where I am referred to. People are like, oh, reach out to Alessandro, or Alessandro, I have this, you know, this person that's looking for this. I'm like, I got you. You know, if they're willing to do the work out of intention and value for my community, a perspective, then that's great. And I always work through a co-design. So I'm like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. We're going to do it together, and we're going to do it with the people you're trying to do it with.
Thank you, Alessandro. And it's something that you've also highlighted here is that there's this level of when you're choosing to offer a service for a particular problem, oftentimes you that problem also becomes personal. Why? Because there is a level of responsibility of, through my business, I'm trying to help resolve certain problems that are also impacting me. And so I think that's also really valuable as people are trying to figure out and really narrow down as we're, as we go through time, we try to figure out, well, what are my values? What do I believe in? What are some of the things that I really care about? And the fact that you've all have gotten to the point where you really define some of those things to monetize and being able to have something for yourselves as well, while also making it personal to you. Jorge,
Yes.
and the question is, I can repeat the question. The question is, who are your clients? Who do you work with? Who do you offer your services to? And how does your business and what you're currently doing support the vision and the mission that you have for the world that you want to see?
Okay, so some of the businesses that I do, I gotta say, first I gotta say also that on all of these businesses, it's also a matter of working in teams. I don't do this all by myself. I work with my brother. He's also part of my team, and it's really important to work in teams. From the three businesses that we have, which is logistics, that's pretty much just delivery of goods. Like if you order food, frozen food, it's just part of that. And baggage solutions is it's a company that we have here at LAX. It's more helping those travelers that want to leave their bags for a couple of hours. We store their bags for a couple of hours and they just come back. The rental side of it is also a rental car. So that's actually more like to anybody who needs those services. But in the consulting area, which is I focus on personal finances, small businesses, specifically with Latino businesses here in Los Angeles and nonprofit organizations. Every time that and throughout all of the different organizations that I've been working, I've had the opportunity to learn so much. So every time I've been at different organizations, I'm adding something new to my knowledge, something new to my curriculum that I can actually share or I can actually use on my advantages in the consulting side. For example, one of the organizations that I was working a couple of years ago recently, I had the opportunity to work directly with the city of Los Angeles and the county of Los Angeles, which gave me great exposure to how how to do consulting with the government or organizations that work for the government, and how to set their systems in accounting on how to present all of these invoices and records, or even help them with audits. Now, on the other side, yes, I'm also an employee, and that's actually fully an organization that fights for the rights of immigrants here in Los Angeles and nationwide. So that's part of my vision. That is working as an employee, but it's also creating these other sources of revenue that are helping me to achieve my goal of generational wealth. Now, remember that I talked about the tax implications, learn the tax system and your finances. One of the reasons people ask me all the time, like, why, how come you don't leave your job as an employee? Because by working with the businesses and as an employee, I minimize some of the taxes that I paid. Unfortunately, as single and undocumented, because I can no longer claim like other and cannot claim some of the dependents that I would like to, like my mom or my parents. So yeah, that's how it is, and really, but mainly it's serving as a radio consulting, and then it's serving these small businesses, smaller nonprofit organizations, and also focusing on the personal finances to the public.
Thank you, Jorge. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, did I hear that you're promoting yourself also in the dating world?
Did I say that? I don't know.
Thank you, Jorge, for sharing. And I think it's so incredible how you all have been able to touch on this the topic of marketing, of creating a brand for yourself. And it's been beautiful to be able to hear and just kind of capture the way that you've been able to brand yourself, you know, whether it comes into financial mobility and financial freedom, no borders, and inclusive access. And it's just been beautiful to be able to hear the way that you show up in a way representing the brand that you want to create for yourself. We are going to go ahead and open it up to answer some of the questions that some of the audience has for us. So we do have some questions that came in. And we do have one of the questions, which is, how can you handle negotiations when the other party is focused strictly on money, when your priority is to make the other party know that you see and recognize them as a person and that they're more important than just getting a good deal? What are some of the strategies that you've utilized in your negotiating skills?
I mean, I can start off by saying, like, for me, a lot of the work that I do has to be values aligned. There's been a couple of times where I'm like, you know what, this just isn't for me. It sounds like you're trying to do a good thing, but you can't. For me, I don't want to cut corners. I'm not looking to make a good deal. I want to ensure the best for my community. And so for me, the way that I navigate that is by making sure that the work that I take, the jobs that I take, and the politicians that I work with or their offices are values aligned in the initiative. And that helps me stay very one, centered with myself, and still have that feel good energy around the work that I do, but also helps me also continue to advance that brand that I for myself.
Thank you, Alessandro. Jorge?
I agree with Alessandro. It's important, very important, to also talk about integrity and your values. Remember a couple of years ago, I was when I used to sell clothing at the swap meets, I went to this store, and my father had already told me that he had negotiated a price. So when I showed up, they gave me a price that was double of what he had negotiated. So I said, no, we already agreed on a price. So he cut down, like 20-30%. And I said, no, that's not what it is. And the guy, just said like, oh, this is best price, blah, 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 blah. And when my father came in, he walked in, he said, oh, it's you. Yeah, I'll give it to you the price. And he cut the price like to literally half of what he had offered me first. And at that moment, I remember telling my father, you know what? Let's get out of here. I'm not going to make this business with this person, because he was really trying to. I know he's trying to make money, but the way that he displayed, the way he actually approached me, the way that he was talking to me was such in a way that he was more interested in making money and really not looking for the relationship as a client, as a client that I could become in the long run. So integrity and your values are very important, and don't be afraid to walk away from that table, because believe me, when you show your integrity and you show them your values, they're the ones that are gonna want they're the ones that are gonna ask you to come back. So I think from my perspective, integrity and values is also very important to show when it comes to negotiating.
Thank you, Jorge. Perna?
Hi, I'm sorry, I got distracted for a second. What was the question?
How do you go about negotiating, especially when the other party is really focused on trying to strictly on their priorities, strictly on money, whereas for you and getting a good deal, whereas for you, you want to prioritize the value that you have.
Yeah, I mean, most people who come in through, I mean, this is it's a different situation maybe, but you can't do this, you know, if you can't pay me for my time, you can go hire another attorney, to be honest with you, is my approach to things. I've never had to negotiate on price. And I don't think you should do that. You should value your own labor and your own time. You're valuable. And if somebody doesn't want to hire you at the rate you have set, good luck. And I also find that the people who try to bargain with me are the clients I don't need to have necessarily. So that is true. You know, and most people usually don't. You can always pay a notario more money to screw up your case and get you deported and pay an immigration lawyer less. There's a big misperception in our communities that lawyers are expensive and that they should go to notarios instead, and that's not good. You know, so our rates usually are lower as lawyers than they are for people who pay notarios lots of money to screw up their cases. So that is true. And if I also have like a go away fee. Sometimes, like if somebody's personality is completely not in align with mine, and I know they're going to be difficult to work with, I usually quote higher to you know, because that's not what I need in my life. And if I really want a case, I actually do it lower, low bono or pro bono actually, to help somebody out. So it's you know, for me, it's really it's not really an issue as much as, and the important thing at the end of the day is that I'm happy and that they're happy, and that we are both feel cared for and valued, I think. And you know, that sort of happens at the very beginning of taking a case, and the very beginning of a consult, like, can we work together? And is this a good fit? Because if it's not, you know, I'll be honest and be like, listen, this is not a good fit, and you should go somewhere else for this. And I'm quite honest about that, because, you know, I've been lucky where I don't have to like chase down leads and chase down clients, and people just come in through the door, which has been, again, you know, a privileged position to be in. So yeah, it has not been anything that I've had to worry about too much, besides, you know, being able to be, you know, set expectations, and that, you know, my time is valuable, as is, you know, your time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
did.
time is money.
Yeah, I did want to add it. I really want to upscale what Perna says about not lowering your rates, or you know, because your rates, people will attribute that to your value, unfortunately. And once you start lowering your rates, it's a slippery slope to keep going lower and lower. And then, you know, that's not a good way to run a business. And to also add what Jorge said, your integrity. I always tell people, don't be disingenuous. Don't paint yourself as something that you're not. Lean into your personality, and that's how you will sell yourself, because people will be able to tell when you're being disingenuous, and that's another way to lose business. Those people. So, you know, don't be disingenuous, or overcome or try and oversell yourself. Just be who you are and lean into that, because again, that is your power. That is your strongest selling point.
Yeah, Jorge. Oh, you're on mute.
Speaking of how much, just going a little bit of how much your rate should be, it's really important to do a research on what is the benchmark in the market, and calculate on top of that what are the taxes that you gotta pay of that, what is the extra because of what the added value that you're bringing. In this case, for example, I hear Alessandro talking about the community, that he is not somebody from the academia, but he has lived there. It's not like he has studied the statistics, but he has lived in the area. So that's the added value, and we all have an added value. So when you're calculating your rate, you put all of that in consideration, and just measure how much is the lowest that you can go. But like I said, never go below the actual rate, because not only makes you you lose clients, but you will start attracting the type of clients that you don't want to have. And at least in my personal experience, it's been clients that they demand so much for the little that sometimes they're for the little that they're willing to pay. So definitely not. Don't go on that route.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. And there's a couple of things that I took away. One of them, there's set your value, because it would also help you attract the kind of people that you want to be working with. And the other one is do a market research. Like Jorge mentioned, like really understand what is the market, how much can you actually charge, and see what are other people charging as well for some of the potential services that you want to offer and provide. We do have another question. So how did you find your brand and your voice? And how do you put yourselves out there? Perna?
This was particularly difficult for me because I'm a very shy, introverted person, which shocks people when they hear this, because I have a totally tough online persona, and I'm blunt. Obviously, that's part of my personality. I'm a straight shooter. I say what's on my mind, but I'm very shy and introverted, so I've never necessarily wanted to be out there or build a profile for myself, or do these things and market myself. So it was really difficult to do so. Thankfully, because of those years of advocacy, there's already people already knew about me and knew who I was and what I was about. So that got easier over time. But you can always use social media and websites and word of mouth to sort of build yourself, your business, your profile, even if you yourself are shy at public speaking or introverted and people drain your energy, as opposed to getting energy from folks. So you can always have use the tools available to you to get have your presence be built out there, whether it's on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, or through panels like these, or through word of mouth, whatever else. Because yeah, that part of it I felt really not intimidated by, but just like draining of energy, and that was important.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. How did you go about creating your own brand and your voice, and how do you put yourself out there?
I think it's a matter of everyday thing. It's just every day. I remember when I was in college, I used to tell my friends, "Don't take pictures with drinks. Don't take pictures with drinks." And they'd be like, "Come on, you're in college." No, 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 no. That builds a reputation, especially in the times in which we live, in which one picture can be shared like worldwide and can be kept there once it's copied, it's out there. You can't retrieve it, whether it's a picture, video, or anything. So it's the same thing. It's on a daily basis. It's really about how you talk to the other person. Don't hesitate and really speak up what you have to say. And if you have a strong belief of who you are, what you want, and who you are, and your values, you shouldn't have any problem. But at which I want to add one more thing here. In order to accomplish that, think about what are the values that define you as a person. Once you know that, once you answer that question, you will realize these values are gonna dictate your life, and then that contributes to creating that reputation in who you are and how people are gonna see you. So what are the question? So if I can leave you with something, the question is, what are the three values that are really aligned with you, or that you align, or that you go by? So I think that to me, that was really important to me. Well, a couple of years ago, it started as a joke with the Mexican candidate when he couldn't name three books that he read in his life. I thought about it. I was like, what are the three books that I have read that define my life? And then I thought about what are the values that define my life. And I can tell you that to me personally, my life is defined by honesty, being humble, and being a respectful person. Those three values to me are really important, and that's how I lead my life, and that has led to the reputation that I have.
Thank you, Jorge. Thank you. Alessandro.
Yeah, I mean, everything that Jorge said, that's exactly like even how I choose the work that I do is that are my values aligned and what are the things that I value. The only thing that I will add to about branding yourself is also don't stop talking about what you do. A lot of times, there's this joke that your best friend, you're best friends with someone when they don't know what you do. But I'm like, no, I make sure my friends know exactly what I do, because part of that is they become ambassadors of your work. Oh, you know what? I have a friend that does that, and you're that friend. So don't stop talking about what you do as part of your brand. Like really figure out what your values are. But once you figure that out, once you figure out what your values are and what you want to do as your business, tell everybody till they get tired of it. Till they're now the ones that are like, you know what he does? He does this, this, and this, because then you don't have to talk about what you do. Then you have a group of people talking about what you do.
I love that. And if you want to start with someone, you can start with your mom. At least for me, when the moment my mom knew what I did, she would tell everybody. Except that she will tell everybody that I was doing it for free. So that's just the one little caveat in this case. Thank you all so much for the valuable information that you shared. And again, there's just so much wealth of knowledge and expertise here that I'm pretty sure that there was multiple things that people are going to be taking with them, questions that you can ask yourselves, books that you can begin to read, and really beginning to gauge and identify who can I begin to share what it is that I do, and really defining what it is that you do so that you can begin sharing that with people. And so I do want to close today's session by, again, thanking you all for being here. I am going to be sharing a quick, my screen real quick, because I do want to know what are some of the things that you took away from today's panel session. I know it's going to probably be very challenging to just choose one, but if you can scan the QR code and or go to menti.com and add the code 2157 5178, and you can answer the question and share. And I'm going to go back to it. The question is, share one word takeaway. Now, there are so many things that I took away from today's panel session, including that learning happens every day. And you're never really going to stop learning. And just because you are starting in one journey, you never know what is the journey that you're going to be, where you're going to be at. And as some of the folks shared, they were doing things that were probably not necessarily aligned to what they're doing now, but a lot of the things that they were doing get them to be where they're at now. And just to close this off, I do have one final question to the panelists while people fill out the Menti. What has your business gifted you with?
A car. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Financial freedom.
Exactly, financial freedom. It has gifted me a beautiful community, to be honest with you, to be able to do the work that I do in the way that I do it. It wouldn't happen without spaces like this one, without connecting with folks that are also going through the struggle. One thing I will leave you is like, and this relates to one of the questions, like you are going to be scared. You are going to doubt yourself, and it's not always going to be amazing, but once you find your rhythm, once you find your step and your stride, you're going to look back and be immensely proud of the steps that you took.
Beautiful.
I will say, just like Alessandro added, a beautiful community. And I might sound a little bit old, but wisdom and experiences.
Mm.
It's so much that I've learned, so many experiences in a beautiful community. Um, I can think of some of, I don't know, Alessandro, how many years of knowing each other we have, but it's many years, many years. Just as I was thinking, I was talking to one of my friends yesterday, and that I met in 2004, and it feels like 20 years. Well, it's been almost 20 years, but we talk like if it was just yesterday when we met. So definitely that. Not only that, it's a network. We are a generation that we have made history, and we continue to make history in this country and in this world, because people look at us from everywhere, every part of the world. So Jorge didn't know I was undocumented. Yes. And Alessandro, I actually know some of your students. So yeah, that's what has this journey has led me. It's a beautiful experience connecting with people in the community. And one more thing, if anybody is interested in mentorship or would like to connect with me, feel free to send me an email or connect with me via LinkedIn.
Awesome. And I think some folks shared their social media, some of their LinkedIn accounts. Jorge, if you want to drop your email in the chat. Again, we are going to be collecting the websites of folks so that they can, well, you can have access to their websites. And our next Meet the Immigrant Entrepreneur will be next Wednesday at the same time at 3 p.m. And it's been an honor to have all of you here and really share a lot of that knowledge and that expertise. I'll go ahead and thank you all for the audience for all of the great questions and the comments. I can't wait to see all of the comments and the things that were happening in the chat. And then Nicole, I don't know if there's anything that you'd like to share to close us off.
Thank you so much to our panelists today for your time and words of wisdom and advice. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you everyone that attended today's session. We hope to see you next week for our final 2 sessions. The next one will be this Wednesday, focused on health and medicine, and we hope to see you all there. All right, enjoy your weekend.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.